All right. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us on our Science of Today. This is our first one in our 2022 series. I'm very excited about this one. As I was telling people as they were coming in, I'm excited about all of them because I picked the topic. So yes, I like them, but I'm very, very, very jazzed about this one because there's a lot of cool information and we have a lot to get through today. So it might be a little longer one. I don't want to go over an hour, but it might be close to that 50-minute marker just so that everybody knows. So I don't have a moderator today, so kind of bear with me if I'm trying to let people in and also look at the chat as well and present too. So it might be one of those days where I kind of wait for questions towards the end, but I will certainly get to them. We do have a new function on our Zoom. If you are interested, sometimes I know it's kind of hard to hear, but if you look down at the very bottom, it should say a live transcript, that CC captioning. You are welcome to click that and you can either have it say, the live transcript, you can just enable that auto transcription. So that will be either come up or on the side for you on that right-hand side, or it will say along the bottom, just like you would watch subtitles in a movie or something like that. So that is an option for everyone if you would like to do that as well. So all right, we'll go ahead and get started. I'm going to share my screen with everybody. I love this picture, so hopefully everyone can see it. All right. So like I said, today we're going to be talking about animal teeth. So this is a huge topic. And while I was originally thinking about how I'm going to do this and what I was going to say and talk about, I was like, man, I really hope I have enough information. And now I'm like, well, I'm going to have plenty of information. So there will be no shortage of knowledge that you're going to learn today. So my name is Monica McCoubry, and I am the Wildlife Education Specialist with the Nebraska Game and Parks Commission in the Lincoln office. This is the third year that we've been doing these. They've been really successful, so I'm excited that we're going to be still doing them again. We have a whole season, 6 episodes lined up for you, and today is the first one, like I mentioned, and we're going to be talking about animal teeth. So if you look at this cute little river otter here, it's kind of it's like a cute picture, but also like a you should be afraid of me picture. So we'll talk about what that means and what their teeth look like. So really quick, just wanted to make everyone aware. I'm so glad that everyone's here. Just make sure that if you have comments or questions, that they are relevant to the topic and that you're nice to everyone and we won't have any issues. But if there is an issue for some reason, we do have the right to remove you. So just kind of keep that in mind. All right. And also something I want to point out, I am by no means an expert. I don't pretend to be. I do a lot of research for these things. I really like these topics. But if I cannot answer these questions at the very end, I will get back to you. I will find someone that can answer them, and then I will get back to you later. So I'm definitely not an expert in animal teeth by any means, but I have done a ton of research for these programs. All right, so let's go ahead and talk a little bit about teeth. What do they look like? What are they? So why did I decide to talk about teeth? So if you have looked at an animal, if you've ever looked in a mirror and smiled, you know that we have teeth. And so a fancy word for that is what we call dentition. So this is something that's unique to vertebrate animals. So having a backbone, an animal's skull over time has developed with those teeth inside. And the diet that an animal eats is super important. Talking about those aspects of biology, they totally depend on the behavior of the animal, the evolution of that animal, and the anatomy of that animal. So teeth are very, very important, not just for the obvious of eating and chewing, but there's lots of other things that kind of cater to those teeth as well. A lot of our paleontologists can often determine the diet of an animal just based on a few teeth that they find. And oftentimes, especially with our extinct mammals, that's all that's left. And we're going to figure out why here in a little bit. But they can literally look at a couple of teeth. They can determine the shape of that animal. They can look at the what they ate and the diet of that animal. They can kind of make a model of what the skull would be. And from that, they can determine what the rest of the body would look like. So teeth give us a way amount of information into the past and also the present of our animals that have teeth. All right, so one of the things, especially with mammals, we're going to talk a lot about mammals because they have teeth and they have a lot of specialized teeth. So why do they have these specialized teeth? A lot of it is just basically to get those resources. So that food that they're eating, it's so that they can get food more efficiently and they can extract those nutrients more quickly and thoroughly. So they only have a certain amount of energy that they're using every single day. And the whole phrase work smarter, not harder, that is with those teeth. So teeth, they can stab, they can crush and grind and slice in many different ways. And we're going to see a lot of teeth today that are strange or weird. I see Sarah Nevison's on here and she gave me a really cool idea for one that we're going to be talking about later that I'm really excited to talk about. So we talked earlier about teeth being fossilized, and sometimes paleontologists look at those. And again, there's sometimes the only reason we know what these mammals were is because of their teeth. So again, I cannot stress how important teeth are. All right, so just like everything in science, teeth are a very hot button issue. They're hotly debated. How did it come about? Was it because that they wanted to be predators, that they needed protection? Is it because that they were eating and they needed more efficiency of eating? Well, it's all the above. And a lot of scientists cannot pinpoint a single reason why teeth evolved over time. We do know that the first tooth-like structures were in these things called jawless fish or fishes about 500 million years ago. So quite a while ago, but in the grand scheme of the earth, it's not that long ago. Over time, animals, evolved and they changed and they adapted, but both rodents and humans have evolved from a common ancestor, and they have what we think was a full set of teeth. And over time, obviously, they have changed. Some things were lost, some things were gained, some things were adapted over time. And so again, teeth are very important, and we're not exactly sure why they happened, but the fact is that they did happen. So these ideas of these very, very early on animals to have a head with a set of jaws and sensory organs was a huge innovation. It was like the iPhone of the 500 million years ago. So this allowed these animals to switch to a more predatory lifestyle. They were able to change their food. They were able to change their behavior. They changed the way they interacted with other animals. So these jawless fish, they did fairly well. They had these tooth-like structures, but then over time, they had these jaw-bearing gnathostomes. So they came later and they were way more successful. They had better teeth, they had better jaws, they had better behaviors and adaptations. But again, that emergence of those specialized teeth were a huge deal. Over time then, as we know now, we have lots of different types of animals that have the shape, the size, the number of them, and then the types of food that they eat as well has changed. All right, so what is a tooth? I'm sure all of us have been to the dentist. I hope all of us have been at least to the dentist once. You kind of know maybe the basic structure of what a tooth looks like. There's the enamel and the crown, and there's a root, and it's in the gum somewhere. Depending on what type of tooth we're talking about, we'll get into this a little bit later, but this is one that we're going to call a rooted tooth, and this is what humans have. So when you look at a tooth, this is a cross section. You can tell that the tooth is buried in your gum line. And so this part that we see, that is the crown. And that crown is covered by this hard surface stuff called enamel. So the enamel, if you've ever been to the dentist, they tell you how important it is and why you should brush and floss and take care of it. Because over time, and just like other mammals and cats and dogs and things like that too, it wears down. So beneath that enamel then is what you call the dentin or the dentine, depends on how you say it. Over time, the enamel can wear and that dentin might be exposed. Dentin is extremely hard, but it's not as hard as enamel itself. Enamel is the hardest substance in the body. So then all of this dentin surrounds what we call a pulp cavity. So this is living, breathing, vascular and innervated tissues that have nerves in them. There's blood vessels in there. The nerves will then reach all the way down through the pulp cavity into that root canal. And if any of you have had a root canal, I'm so sorry, I can't imagine. But that penetrates all the way down into your roots. And then you have this stuff called cementum, which sounds like cement. It surrounds the root and protects that root. All right, so different types of teeth when we talk about this. So over time, as you get older, your teeth will mature and that root canal can eventually close off. So these are what we call rooted teeth. And again, this is like what humans have. If you have a dog or a cat, this is also what they have. And in this very first picture here, this is actually it's a golden retriever, but it is a dog. And this is what their teeth look like. So those kind of swirly structures on top, that's your nasal cavity, the dog's nasal cavity, and then you can see their teeth. They're rooted in there pretty tight. Rootless teeth are the teeth, again, when that root canal remains open. So a little different than our rooted teeth, and those teeth will continuously grow. So the second photo here, I have a beaver, and these two teeth, they look a little different. They look pretty rooted in there, but if you know anything about rodents, is they continuously grow over time. And so technically they are what we call rootless teeth. All right, so we are going to talk quite a bit about mammals today, just because they have very specialized dentition. They have some weird teeth, and we're going to talk a little bit about how they got their teeth and what they look like. All right, so we talked about teeth. We know vertebrates have them. So in all vertebrate groups, they have teeth. And we call them teeth or tooth-like structures. There's a bunch of different names you can call them, the denticles, the teeth, tooth-like structures, whatever you want to call them. But we do know that other animals also have teeth. I'm a big fan of snakes, and they absolutely have teeth. They're just very different. Fish have them. Most reptiles will have them too. Even a few amphibians possess them too. Again, they just look different. So if you have a large number of teeth, we call that polydont. So you have a large number of them. There's a lot of technical terms. Don't need to really worry about them unless you want to. So if you have a large number of teeth and they're very similar in shape, we call those homodont teeth. So homo meaning similar. And they also what we call, they go under continuous replacement. So if you know sharks, or if you've ever seen shark teeth before, you know that if they lose one, they constantly regrow them. And so we call that polyphyodont. So they continuously regrow their teeth. These teeth are made of dentin, an enamel, or a very similar substance, but they are rootless. So not like your dogs or your cats or your teeth. They attach directly to the bone. So if you've ever seen a shark jaw, you see their teeth are directly in their bone. There's no gum line. Or sometimes they're connected by what's called ankylosis or fibrous tissues, depending on the species. All right, so where did mammal teeth come about? So they're very diverse, and they've over time, those lineages have separated and things have been lost and gained, and just depends on what species and what they're eating. So the cusp or the shape of the tooth is different, the amount of crest that they have. One thing that I found that was super fascinating is rodents, like things like nutria and beavers and hamsters and guinea pigs. Their teeth will continuously grow, which I'm sure a lot of us knew, but it's actually called stem-fueled continuous growth. So very similar to like stem cells. This is the same process that their teeth are continuously growing over time. So overall, teeth were thought to have evolved or kind of adapted from those conical or those cone-like teeth. So if you ever look at photos of very early animals, they're all the same. They look like just big triangles sticking out, sort of how you would draw teeth if you were a little kid, just a big triangle in their mouth. But mammals now have a single row of teeth in the upper and the lower jaws, very similar to fish and snakes. Some are different, but in biology, there's always exceptions. So when we talk about teeth replaced only once in mammals, there's always exceptions, and other species, they are continuously replaced. And again, there's always exceptions, and we're going to talk about those. All right. So what type of teeth do we have out there? We have these things called placental mammals, which is something like a coyote. But then we also have these weird egg-laying mammals that are found in places like in Australia or New Guinea. We call those the monotremes. So these are animals like the echidna and the platypus, where they are still mammals, but they lay eggs. They have very I don't want to say rudimentary teeth, but they have something called an egg tooth, which is very similar to reptiles and birds. When they hatch out of their eggs, they use this little egg tooth to kind of pierce that shell. And then over time, probably 2, 3, 4 days, they will lose it because it's no longer needed. Very similar to monotremes, again, because they have to break out of that egg, but then they are still mammals. So adult monotremes then, after losing that egg tooth, they have these things called horny plates instead of actual teeth like you would see in yourself or your dog. The therian mammals, which are all living mammals except the monotremes, they're heterodonts, meaning that they have teeth that are different shapes and different sizes. So if you go hiking in the woods and you found a skull and it was, let's say it's a perfectly intact skull, and you open it up, there's going to be 4 specialized shapes of teeth. You're going to have your incisors, your canines, your premolars, and your molars. Now, depending on what type of animal it is and the stage that you find that skull, you might not find molars or you might not find canine teeth. But again, there's always exceptions. But we also talk about something having a dental pattern. A normal mammal that you're going to find is going to have that dental pattern of what's called 3I, so 3 incisors, 1 canine or 1 set of canines, 4 premolars, and 3 molars. Typically that's it, but again, this varies between species. All right, I can't stress enough that rodents are weird. They have this weird area in their mouth that is a huge gap. We call it, you can see kind of right here, it's called the diastema. It's right here. It's just this weird gap that they have their front teeth right here, those incisors, and then there's this huge gap, and then their teeth come back here. So mice are highly specialized. When people and scientists go to study teeth, they look at mice teeth or mouse tooth because they are so weird. So what we call quadrants, and when I refer to a quadrant, there's 4 of them. We call it the right side of the upper jaw, the left side of the upper jaw, the left side of the lower jaw, and the right side of the lower jaw. So basically left and rights of your upper and lower jaws. So rodents are weird again because they continuously replace those teeth. But they don't have replacement teeth. Unlike humans, we have 2 sets. But again, they have that stem cell fueled growth of incisors. Voles will also have this as well, even though they're not mice. They are still types of those small brown mammals or small mammals as well. All right, so what does the anatomy of a tooth look like? So there's 2 basic types. We call them brachydont teeth or low crown teeth, or we have hypsodont teeth, which are those high crowned. This photo does a fabulous job of showing the difference between a hypsodont or a high crowned and then a brachydont, which is a low crowned. If you really want to get technical, there's mesodont, there's hypsodont. I can't say that one, but there's a lot of different types. We're going to worry about hypsodont and brachydont today. All right, so mammals can have something that's called a brachydont tooth. Basically, again, you can see this photo here. They're smaller than those hypsodont teeth, but they're found in things like humans, we have them, carnivores, like your dogs and cats, and pigs as well. They have a very simple structure and they don't grow very tall. If you ever looked at a horse, we don't have horse teeth. As much as you might say that someone does, that's super mean. We don't have horse teeth. The crown is encased in that enamel. Again, an enamel we talked about, hardest substance in the body. I won't read through all this again because it's kind of the stuff we just talked about, but you can see the photos here. When we say high crowned, it's very, very high. And one thing that you will notice is that in a brachydont tooth, the crown is what you see. The surface of a hypsodont tooth, you see very little of it. A lot of it is encased in that jaw. All right, so horse is a great example of what we call a hypsodont tooth. They're very high crowned. They continue to erupt throughout the life of the animal, and they're found in permanent teeth like the cheek teeth or your molars, premolars of ruminants and horses. So they have a body, which a lot of people say, and like I mentioned, a lot of that is below the gum line. You don't see a lot of the tooth, but the enamel does cover the entire body of the tooth except for the root, which is very different. But in both types of tooths, they are attached to the socket as well. All right, so when we talk about a dental formula, what does that mean? You might have heard someone mention that before, or when you talk to your dentist, they might have mentioned that before. It's basically just a way to identify a specific species based on their teeth. So when we talk about a dental formula, it's usually one thing, but you have to remember that our jaws, hopefully, are bilaterally symmetrical. So when we refer to that, we mean half of the entire jaw. So the upper jaw, when you see something, this is an example that I have here. So that upper jaw is listed over the lower jaw. So the upper jaw in here, this is your incisors, canines, premolars, molars. There's 3, 1, 4, 2. And in your lower, it's a little bit different. So you have 3 incisors, you have 1 canine, and then 4 premolars and 3 molars in this one. And if anyone wants to take a guess, I'm not going to tell you until the end, but if anyone wants to take a guess on what this animal skull is from, if you want to put it in the chat, kind of a fun thing to do here, I'll tell you in a minute. It is not something we have in Nebraska. I hope they're not in Nebraska. I've never seen one, but if you have a guess, put it in the chat. All right, so what about those animals that have what we call milk teeth, or they have replacement teeth? So most vertebrates are going to have teeth that are continuously replaced over time. The teeth will erupt from the jaw, and again, over time, just because of what you eat and the abrasiveness of your diet, they might wear, but then they're going to drop out, and then the teeth are going to grow in the roots. This process works. It's worked for a lot of animals. It works just fine, but it's not very practical. There's a lot of gaps in the teeth when they're not present and they're still growing in. And a lot of animals sometimes have issues with this. It might make them hard for them to catch their food or hold on to their food. Or what if they lose a whole bunch of teeth at once? What if half their jaw is gone? So it can cause some issues, but it still works, but it's not very practical for a lot of those animals. So instead, most mammals have what we call diphyodont, which means twofold. So they have 2 sets of teeth. So most mammals, when they're first born, they have a set of weaker and smaller teeth, which is known as our milk teeth, or sometimes people call them their deciduous teeth. This is for humans too. And I will tell you about this photo here in a second, and you will never look at your toddler the same way again. So these teeth will usually erupt very soon after birth. In some species, it depends, not humans, although I think it has happened before, they are born with teeth. But some species of mammals, they actually do the whole 2-fold process while they're in utero. So this means that they will go through their first set of teeth, lose them, get their adult teeth, and then before they even come out of the womb. So very interesting. These teeth will consist of incisors, canines, and premolars. The molars come later as part of the adult dentition. So right now I have almost a 3-year-old. She does not have molars. She has premolars, but when she loses all of her teeth, she will get her molars the second set. The milk teeth then are replaced by the time of weaning. So we're talking about mammals, animal mammals here. The molars are then added when there is space in the jaws as they are growing. So right now, my 3-year-old does not have a lot of space in her jaw. So again, they're continuously being pushed down. So this photo, the first time I ever saw this a while ago, a few years ago, I was like, what the heck is this? This is actual skull from about a 7-year-old. So if you remove all the front, the lips, the tissues, everything, this is what it looks like. It looks like something out of a horror movie, but this is what it looks like. So the teeth, the milk teeth, they kind of begin about 6 weeks when the baby is still in the womb. By age about 3, the average child has about 20 what we call primary teeth. In most children, they shed their baby teeth about 5, 6, some are older, some are earlier. But then this skull was prepared so that the dentition was cut out by displaying those outer layers of the jaw to show all those teeth that are hidden in there that are just waiting to be pushed down. So this is a 7-year-old. So if you have a 7-year-old, this is what their mouth looks like. It's super creepy, but this is just their teeth continuously being moved down. And then once they have lost all their teeth and regained all their adult teeth, it will look more like a normal human skull that you would see. All right, so those Diphyodont teeth, these are the ones, these young animals, they have those milk teeth in them and they're still present. A lot of times if you ever are a deer hunter, if you ever checked in a deer, this is what we use to check and see how old a deer is. We literally will cut their mouth and look to see if they have their milk teeth still present. And if they don't, then we know how old these animals are. And if they do have them, we know how old those animals are. Over time, teeth will wear down, just like humans. Ours go fairly slow, but it depends on what that animal's eating. So if they're using something like an elephant that's eating a lot of abrasive material, their teeth are going to wear down way more quickly than they could handle. So with some animals, they have certain characteristics and specializations that help them. So at one time, if you ever open up a elephant's mouth, you'll notice they have a lot of teeth, but they only really have 2 active teeth at one time. That's because they would otherwise wear down their teeth so fast that it wouldn't be practical for them. So they continuously like kind of replace them like a conveyor belt. All right, let's see if we have any questions in the chat or anything. I see a couple people, hippo, good. It is a hippo, actually. I will give you that right now. It is a hippo. You can see from those tusks on them, and we'll talk a little bit more about tusks here in a second. But please, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat, or we can certainly wait until the end. It is my understanding that anteaters have no teeth. They are called indente. I think that that's a good question. I'm going to have to look that up. Either the anteater or the armadillo. I think the armadillo has the most teeth. It's 74, I want to say. But I will get back to you on that. That's a good question. Sarah asks, I never knew that there were animals that gained and lost their milk teeth in utero. Are they born with adult teeth? Yes, there are some that will actually be born with their adult teeth all ready to go. I guess that it's more efficient for that species to do that. There's not very many of them that do, but it does happen. All right, so just talking a little bit about different types of the teeth that we have in our mouth and the functions of them. So your incisors. So these are your teeth that are right here. These are your most like forefront teeth, usually in any animal. So in the primitive mammals, they had 3 of them in each quadrant. So 3 over here, 3 over here, 3 over here, and 3 over here. That's a lot of incisors. They're normally pretty simple teeth, but many of the species, they're used for kind of grasping or pinching things. So now we know like rodents, they are very specialized. They have incisors that are able to continuously grow, and they use them to chew on things. So they have over time been specialized and kind of modified for their diets. Same thing with lagomorphs, which are like rabbits, hyraxes, the all of these have kind of used to form almost like chisels that they use for gnawing on things. Things like tusks, so things hippos have also been modified. Those are incisors. They're just different. They're modified. So hippos, elephants, that kind of thing. Some bears have some really unique incisors that they've modified to fit their diet. And then vampire bats, they have those special 2 front incisors that they will use to slit open an animal so they can drink their blood. So they work just fine. They're incisors. They're just a little different in different animals. All right, so your canines. So not every single animal will have canines, but if they do, they're going to have 1 in each quadrant. So 1 in the upper, 1 in the upper, 1 in the lower, and 1 in the lower. So this is actually a mountain lion that I have right here, this photo of an animal. So in some animals, they are present, like I said, in our hooved animals. They might have them or they might not have them. If they do, they're having them in the lower jaw. When they are present, they're usually that first tooth in the maxilla, which is the bone that forms your upper jaw. And normally if they have them for a reason, like a mountain lion. They're used for stabbing and holding their prey. So they're going to be fairly large and fairly long. Even things like a badger or a raccoon, they have them. It's not just for carnivores, it's for omnivores as well. And then things like a narwhal, if you've ever watched a baboon yawn before and show its teeth, they are very enlarged. Musk deer, if you don't know what a musk deer is, I suggest Googling it, that they have very enlarged canines. All right, your premolars. So these are the ones that you're going to have 2 sets of when you're born. So you have them, you lose them, and you get new ones. These are found in your lower jaws and your upper jaws. They vary in shape and size. Usually they're fairly simple and smaller than your molars, but not always. But these are the ones, again, that are replaced every time. Basically what these are used to do is a little bit for grinding, but they're simple, what we call puncturing teeth. They're holding something, they're making it easier for it to go back to your molars to grind, and then you eventually will swallow it. All right, and then your molars. So these are the ones that come as you get to be an adult. They vary in shape and size, and even the function on them. Most posterior teeth in the jaw. So these are going to be the ones way, 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 way back there. Some of them are very reduced. So if you have a deer skull and a mountain lion skull together, and you can probably imagine deer, they eat a lot of plant material. So they're going to be chewing and continuously grinding their food. So they have a lot of molars. Mountain lions don't really need them. They have a couple of premolars, and I'll go back to this photo here. They don't really have molars. They don't need them. These are still very sharp. And they just simply don't need them. It's not efficient for them to have them in their mouth. Some species like cows, they have extremely large molars because they chew a lot. Basically, the idea is that they have a very large surface area to help with digesting and to break down that food before it goes down your esophagus. All right, and I love this picture. Chewing. So the whole point of having teeth and jaws is to chew or to break off things and eat it. So it's different depending on different animals and how they chew. If you, like I talked about, if you go hike in the woods or something and you find a skull, and let's say it's a perfectly intact skull, if you open and shut it, that gives you huge insight to how that animal eats, where those jaws come together. If it's an older animal, you might be able to see something called wear facets. These are basically where the teeth come together when they're chewing, and over time they can continuously wear down. When you look at a tooth, there's cusps, there's crests, there's basins, and they all have specific functions on a tooth. So the cusps, they serve to basically puncture the food, kind of like a balloon. The crests then, they connect to the cusps, and basically they're shearing. And then your basins are those like kind of indentations in your teeth. If you touch them, they grind or crush the food. So those are all on a single tooth, or they could all be on a single tooth. Most mammals have a very flexible jaw. So if you take a second and you move your jaw, you can move it sideways, up and down. You can do some crazy stuff with your mouth. That's good. That helps us chew our food, and it gives us a wide range of motion. Things like guinea pigs and capybaras, they're rodents. They run their teeth along a slot. They chew a lot. And so their jawline and their teeth, they kind of move like a conveyor belt almost. Another fascinating one is a wolverine. So wolverines kind of live up in northern areas. Michigan is one of them. So Michigan, they can actually lock their jaws. So they are carnivores. They're highly specialized carnivores. Their jaws are basically restricting up and down. They don't need to chew side to side like a ruminant. They are there to simply crush and grind. So crushing and tearing and swallowing, that's basically all they can do. But they will actually be able to lock their jaws onto something, which helps them get their food. All right, we're gonna kind of talk a little bit about fish teeth here, and then we're gonna talk about some strange teeth in the world. Humans have wisdom teeth. Do other animals have weird pointless teeth? Good question. I'm sure there's some out there. I didn't really run across wisdom teeth too much. I didn't focus on that, but my guess is that animals have the reason for their teeth. They have them for a reason, and it's hard for them to have something in their mouth that's not useful, but that doesn't mean that it's not there. I just simply don't know about that. And Sarah looked it up. It looks like anteaters don't have incisors or canines, but they have premolars and molars. Means few or no teeth. So this includes sloths, armadillos, anteaters, pangolins, aardvarks. Pangolins have no teeth. Good to know. Thank you, Sarah, for looking that up. All right. Thank you, Sarah. All right. So we're going to go ahead and talk about fish teeth here. So fish teeth are a little bit different. We call them pharyngeal jaws or pharyngeal teeth. So in some fishes, there is what we call a second set of jaws. So they have their regular jaws and then they have the pharyngeal jaws. These are developing from a certain area in the mouth called the visceral arch. This is what supports the gills in some fish, and they are toothed. So these fish, they have very powerful muscles and they have kind of what we call plastic teeth. Not that they're actually made out of plastic, but they're very flexible and they are modified to that food that that animal is eating. So they can move around quite a bit. So these pharyngeal jaws, they allow the regular jaws to specialize just for prey capture. So they get the food, they capture it, and then the mouth is like, okay, now what? So the pharyngeal jaws are breaking up the food and then moving it down to the esophagus. So in certain animals like suckers and other fish, they basically are otherwise lacking teeth, but they have instead these pharyngeal jaws or pharyngeal teeth. Now, one super cool exception, and I'm so excited to show you this, is the moray eel. So if you've ever heard of this, moray eels, have you ever seen The Little Mermaid? You know what a moray eel is. They also have pharyngeal jaws, but they're a little bit different. So in most animals, these muscles that control the pharyngeal jaws, they're like a cradle of muscles and they move fairly like a cradle, like back and forth. In the moray eel, they're like bungee cords. They shoot in and out. So this gives them a special ability to sling their jaws back and forth to capture their larger prey, things like squids and crabs and octopus. And their teeth are very sharp and they recurve backwards so that they can grab them and then sling it back into their mouth. Scientists have called it raptorial feeding. And it helps them because if you think about where they live or their habitat, they're very long and slim and they live in those narrow burrows and rock crevices. So it's easy for them to sling their jaws out, grab something and then bring it back in. They don't have to do a lot of moving or maneuvering to get out of those crevices. This was a fairly recent discovery. In 2008, there was someone that looked into this, but they missed this huge portion about these slinging muscles. So he's like, yep, I found it, 2008, I got it. Well, another person went back and looked at this again in 2019, and they found these jaws and the special muscle and the way that they move their jaws. And so it's a fairly recent discovery. So 2019 is kind of neat. All right, now we're going to take a little bit of a journey into some strange teeth, not in Nebraska, but just some like weird things that are out there. And it's kind of interesting, at least for me. All right, so snakes are not weird by any means, but I did want to include them because a lot of people, when they think teeth, they think fangs and they think snakes. So teeth in snakes, they are used for holding their prey and they're not used for chewing. Snakes do not chew, but instead what they do is they grab something and they pull it in and they use their mouth almost like a conveyor belt. So they hold it and then those teeth move back and forth to kind of literally move that food into their esophagus. Something that some snakes will have fangs and some snakes will not have fangs. They just have those kind of normal teeth. If you've ever been bit by a snake, you know that their teeth can come out. So they are not rooted like our teeth. If you bit somebody, hopefully your teeth will not fall out. These are supposedly to do just that, and then they will get those replacement teeth. So I won't read all this to you, but there are rear fang snakes. There's snakes with fangs at the front of their mouth, like a cobra, and then you have these hollow fangs that actually fold down like a rattlesnake. I really want to focus on this graph right here. So people have kind of thought the different shapes of teeth are used for those animals and how they eat their food. This just proves it again. So these slender, really almost like hypodermic needle fangs, they are used for soft-bodied prey like mice and maybe some lizards. And they're very sharp. As they get a little more robust and blunt, you're going to move to some different types of prey. So things like crabs. And then again, it's kind of cool to see where all these animals lie. Are they a generalist? Are they a fish eater, a piscivore? Are they eat soft-skinned things or exoskeleton? So it's kind of neat to see, again, how those teeth are so important for these animals and what they're eating, because it literally is what keeps them alive. If they have the wrong kind of teeth, they're not going to be able to eat their food. All right, so some weird fish and animals that are out there that have these weird teeth in them is one of them is called a dragonfish. So these guys are very little, only about 6 inches long. They live very far down, about 5,000 feet below the sea level. This is an area that lacks plant life, not a lot of light, if any light at all. But these things will eat on small fish and things like crustaceans. That's pretty much the only thing that's down there. So they have these very large, powerful jaws and these fang-like teeth. So these teeth, being 6 inches long, these teeth are fairly large, and for their body size compared to their teeth length are very strange. These animals also have teeth that grow on their tongue, and we think this is because they can grab stuff without a lot of light and then pull it in and eat it. Just like an anglerfish, this is one of those animals that will produce its own light through bioluminescence. We think that this helps them attract their prey, and it also signals potential mates. One thing that I kind of thought that was interesting is when I was looking through this and reading it, they are able to do bioluminescence, that light, but then a lot of their prey can do it too. So their prey is like, yeah, I see you. I know what you are. Don't lure me in. It's not going to work. So again, that's why those teeth are needed. All right, another weird fish. This is called the sheepshead fish. This one's a little more close to home. It's in the United States, can be found kind of on the coast up all the way from like Cape Cod, Massachusetts, all the way south to things like Florida, and even down to Brazil along the coast. These are almost like human-looking teeth. So it's a marine fish. They have these large dorsal spines, but their teeth are literally like incisors. The first person that ever found it, they thought that someone had lost their dentures in the water and this fish had grabbed them. And they had no idea what was wrong with this fish. Turns out there's nothing wrong with this fish. It's just how their teeth are. So their rear teeth actually have developed into molars. And then they have 2 rows of molars on the lower and 3 rows on the upper. And it's hard to see the upper side, but you can see how many teeth this animal has. We think that it has helped to crush and grind the really hard shelled creatures that they're eating. So crabs, mussels, clams, that kind of stuff. They're eating those, and they're fairly large fish, 10 to 20 inches long. But a lot of people now, they're finding them more, and they're taking photos, and the teeth of the humans, because you're smiling, it's a fish photo, compared to the teeth of the fish are very similar. So it's kind of creepy, but it exists down there. They didn't just swallow dentures. It's okay. All right. Sarah, thanks for telling us about this a while ago. I had no idea about these animals. They're called the Crabeater Seal. Plot twist, they don't really eat crabs. I thought they would. Nope, they don't. 90% of their diet is krill. And krill is very, very tiny. That's what a lot of the whales will eat. So these teeth are one of the most specially adapted teeth of any carnivore in the world. If you look at their teeth right here, they literally look like little Christmas trees or palm trees or something. But every single tooth is like that. So those teeth all together, they act like a sieve. This allows them to eat large amounts of water and filter out the krill and spit out the water. Other part of their diet, about 10% or so, they eat things like cephalopods and other kinds of fish. One thing that's also kind of neat, being a large mammal, a large marine mammal, we wouldn't think there's a lot of them. It turns out scientists believe that they are the most abundant large mammal on Earth. I saw anywhere from 7 million to 50 million they believe that there's out there. But again, very, very, very cool teeth. And again, when you look at them up front, these kind of teeth right here, they can't eat penguins, not very often, but they can. But then also looking at these teeth in the back is really what gets you. So very cool. All right, had to include the unicorn of the sea. Narwhals, I just want to point out, it was very hard to find a narwhal photo. when you search narwhal, you get a bunch of unicorn photos. That's not what I wanted. I wanted an actual true narwhal. So a lot of people know these animals. Elf, the movie Elf, did a really great job of kind of first bringing them up to something, and then kind of people from there is like, oh my gosh, narwhals, they exist. It's not a specialized creature, it is an actual creature, and they have this tusk that jets out from their head. So males are usually the ones that have them. Some males have two, some males have none. We really don't know why, but some have one or two or none. They're very large. They grow up to about 10 feet long, and it's actually an enlarged tooth. And this tooth has sensory capability, has up to 10 million nerves inside. And we believe that this is how the males will exert their dominance. So again, we're not exactly 100% sure. They're very understudied species, but we think that that is the reason why they have this weird tooth. All right, had to put a bird in here. So the Goosander duck, people sometimes call it the sawbill. It literally uses its teeth to saw through whatever they are eating. So this is small mammals, other birds. There's about 150 teeth or so that line their bills, and you can kind of see them in here. So their teeth are used for gripping mostly fish, but they will eat other things as well. And they're part of the merganser family. So if you know what a merganser is, you can look up it, very similar to what these guys will look like. All right, I think this is the last one. So there's this pig. It's a wild pig. There's only about 12 or so species of this animal, but there's one in particular species called the North Sulawesi. I'm probably saying that wrong, but is a species that is famous for its tusks. So we learned earlier that the tusks are just the incisors that have been modified over time. So people will call these animals a wild pig with a dental problem. They're there for a reason. They have very, very large, these are canine teeth, or their tusks. So this species is the only one that the males will grow them, but both species have the lower tusks. They're very similar to your fingernails. So as long as the animal is alive and receiving a blood supply, they will grow. Problem with this is that some of these animals can live for a long time, and which means they have a very long blood supply. They can grow up to 12 inches long. And this one doesn't look that bad, but there were some that I found that it literally will grow back up into their head. So especially places like a zoo or a refuge, if you have these, they have to cut them off because otherwise it can kill the animal. It will literally grow and pierce the head of the animal. That's how strong these teeth are. So very interesting. I think that was it. Yes. All right. So a little bit longer. I said about 15 minutes. I was pretty close. So thank you all for joining me. Next week, we're going to be talking about Nebraska geology and fossils. So we're switching it up from teeth to geology and fossils. We're going to talk a little bit about the rich history that Nebraska actually has as far as geology, what you can find, why are we finding this stuff, where we're finding it, and we're going to talk a little bit about some of those prehistoric animals that have called Nebraska home at one point. So this is the next 5 weeks or so. We have hopefully a wide range of topics that people are interested in. Nebraska geology and fossils. We're going to be talking about mussels, rodents, earthworms, salamanders, and then we'll start again up in July. So each single one has a different registration link. So please either follow us on our Facebook page or on our wildlife education page, or even the online calendar for Nebraska Game and Parks. So next week, like I said, we're going to be talking about geology and fossils. I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing here. One thing I also want to mention too is that everyone that registered for our program will be receiving an evaluation. You are welcome to fill it out. We always want to know how we can continue to our programs and meet your needs and do the very best that we can. And if you do fill out that evaluation, you will get a swag prize that we will email you. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but we appreciate you filling out our evaluation. So with that, are there any questions? I also just feel like I threw a ton of information and people are like trying to digest it all, but hopefully you learned at least one cool thing. Thank you for the comments. Very informative. I'm glad you learned something. Good. And again, please do not feel like I am an expert. If you have a question, I will definitely try and find someone that can answer it and get back to you as well. Other things people said, the Google goose tongue and the leatherback sea turtle mouth. Yes, well, please look that up, the leatherback sea turtle mouth. Thinking about doing this, it was hard not to do the jaws and teeth together. The jaws and the skull formations are super important as long as those teeth. So I'm guessing that we're going to have to do another science of just all about like skulls and how to identify skulls and what they're looking like. So, all right. Yep. Someone said if I want a great segue between today and the next week, look up Oreodonts. Is that how you say it? Now I'm hungry. I'm thinking Oreos, but. All right. Well, if anyone has any other questions, yes. Okay. Thank you. But if anyone has any other questions, please, I'll stay on here for a few minutes, but otherwise we will see you next week from 3 to 4. We're going to be talking about geology and fossils. And then also please fill out those evaluations if you get them, and give us about 24 hours or so. And this live recording will be up on our education YouTube channel. So, and I will give all of you the links that registered as well today. So thank you very much, everyone. Appreciate it. Thanks for joining us.